listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Doomloop Dispatch, the show that covers the worst parts of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm your host, Kevin L. Jones, and with me whenever possible is...
D. Scott Miller.
And today we have a serious treat. You thought we peaked when we had Chase Boudin on last week. You're wrong. We
tricked you.
We have the Bay Area legend, the former CNN television host, Kamau Bell, on the show with us. Thank you, Kamau, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Bay Area legend. I used to hate hearing stuff like that. Now I'm like, yeah, I'll take it.
I think you've established yourself, man.
I just sort of feel like, what am I doing? Yeah, fine, great. Yes, it's good to have some title of something. So yeah, I'll take it.
Well, yeah, and you're a perfect representation. At least the side that I want representing the Bay Area. You know.
Yes, I'm not yes, there's many different versions of the Bay Area at this point.
Yeah, too many.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's my first question. How are you feeling about the Bay Area right now, especially after these elections, especially after seeing these recalls in Oakland? I mean, what are your thoughts?
It's funny, because I travel around a lot. I hear about Oakland when I'm not in Oakland and what people think about Oakland. And, there's certainly a reputation, a hard fought for reputation, because there's people out there who are monetizing how bad Oakland is or how bad San Francisco is. And so people are like, they will tell you about the place you live. Like, you can't even walk down the street in Oakland. And he was like, you live in Alabama. Like, what are you talking? You don't know any, like, what would you know about Oakland? So, I definitely think that Oakland is in need of some love and some support, as we can hear the cops probably not going to go love and support someone. And I feel invested in trying to be a part of how do we sort of help the parts of Oakland that need help. But I also feel like it's important to say every city in this country is going through some shit right now because America is putting us all through some shit. And so when I travel everywhere, I hear the same story. Downtown used to be good, now it's bad. Property crime is up. We're trying to figure out. The politicians won't listen to us. It's the same story everywhere. So I just think that, like, because the way America works, if it's perceived as being black or lefty or both, it's going to get more attention. So that's where we're at.
Oh, brutal. Yeah.
That's absolutely true, though.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, I mean, you live in Oakland. What are you seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's all like, everything's perfect. Yeah. I think if you live in Oakland, you've seen a car bipped right in front of you. You know what I mean? Like, it has happened. But I think that but I think that all of that, I understand that to be an indicator of, like, something's broken in the system, that these people feel like this is the way to make this happen. I think that it has definitely been exaggerated that I think the idea when crime goes up, or when there's crime that you can see, you suddenly think that you're in Mad Max and there's violence everywhere. And it's not that. There's definitely problems with violence in Oakland, but there's problems with violence everywhere. But we are going through a time where not only did COVID sort of screw us all over, but then corporations and the government took advantage of us being screwed over and then created a new idea. Like, man, all the shelves are empty at the farmers at the drugstore because people are stealing everything. Or are they not stocking the shelves at your convenience store anymore because they want to they want to create a perception so they don't have to do as many things, they can make more profit. You know what I mean? So I think that's where I'm at, is that it's the corporations and the politicians taking advantage of what is that expression? Don't let a tragedy go unused. I'm not getting it right, but that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good observation because, like, for example, we just learned that Walgreens is going to be closing, I think, like five or six of pharmacies in Oakland. But then at the same time, they are also guilty of, like, this incredible wage theft. Like, they just finished, like, and the same thing's also happening with the Walmarts and everything, and also the Safeways. The Safeways also got caught with price gouging and wage theft. And so, when they say that they have to lock up the stuff at your local pharmacy, but the guys who actually own the place are robbing you more than anybody stealing shampoo. So I agree. I agree 100%. And they do like to paint it as something that's an Oakland phenomenon. But if price gouging is also an Oakland phenomenon, as is wage theft, Oakland phenomenon. So, and we never hear about that on the news.
Yeah. No. I mean, as I follow Robert Reich on Instagram, so he'll let you know that like the corporation, the people who run these companies are getting richer and richer every year. They're raising prices. They have a higher profit margin. While at the same time, when you go into the store, they go, yeah, we had to raise prices. And right now, we're about to see that tariff. Even the rumor of a tariff is going to make people go, we had to raise prices because of the tariff, even though. Maybe the tariff's 25%, but we had to raise prices 47%. It's just like whatever it is, they will take advantage of that. So, let's all get those boats back and go back in the other direction. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, and the thing to note too is that this plan to close Walgreens has been in the works for 5 years.
Yep.
So even before you had the whole what was it, retail theft crime wave, all that stuff going on, and basically you have the media saying, oh, well, they're closing stores because they don't like the crimes going on, and totally ignoring this very public fact that the stores were planned to be closed anyways.
Yeah, we sort of wonder like, oh, the stores are closing because of all this crime. Well, and also not everybody, but many people are getting all their things from Amazon. So there's this is where there's other things happening too. Everything is not. It's just easier to I don't know if it's any news. Easier to blame black people.
Yeah.
Than capitalism. If we could just blame capitalism, we could figure things out. But it's easier to blame black people. That just makes more sense.
Well, I mean, and that is a really interesting observation. I mean, I know you traveled the country talking to people for different stratas. I mean, actually, I interviewed you for a piece I did in the East Bay Express about Afrofuturism and tech, particularly tech in Atlanta. So, I mean, like you have a really good perception of the way the rest of the country is moving, and so do black people in other parts of, because I don't travel, right? Are how cognizant are like black people all over the country right now about the way that they're being used and manipulated through, like, say, like Trump's campaign or wage theft or retail? Are these kind of manipulations actually like something that the general public is aware of, or just people like us who live in Oakland who are just getting...
I don't think it's just people like us. I do think it's people like us who pay attention to these things. And those black people exist in every city that black people are in. But your average person, this is what happened just through the election. I had to keep reminding people, your average person wakes up on election day and is like, who am I going to vote for today? That's your average person. Just to connect it up. So all I can say is that most people aren't paying attention because I understand why they wouldn't pay attention. This shit is boring and depressing. So most people are just waking up, trying to get to work, trying to take care of their families. They don't have the time or the bandwidth to try to figure out why is this thing happening, other than I wish I used to have a Walgreens here and now I don't. So I don't blame black people who are not that keyed in. I do think more black people are keyed in than we realize. I mean, you think of a place like Atlanta where, Atlanta's supposed to be the Wakanda in America for black folks. And they're building Cop City. You know what I mean? I think that is a thing that and that's supposed to be a bright blue dot in the middle of a deep red state. And yet in that bright blue dot, something like Cop City can happen. So I think that many black people get politicized in those ways when things like that happen. But your average person is like, oh, a city for cops. That sounds great. They're not read into, and I don't blame them. I think it's easy to call people low information voters, but I like to call it people living their lives who have enough on their plate. Whereas those of us who have the time, the privilege, the education, and have the deep interest in professionalizing this, we just pay attention to a lot more. But, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you heard this, but the idea of like the day of the election, like there was a Google spike for people saying, for looking up, why isn't Joe Biden on the ballot?
Oh my God.
There was like a significant spike for people who looked at their ballot and were like, what? It's easy to call those people dumb or whatever, but no, that probably works 3 jobs. You know what I mean? It has a kid and is divorced and has to navigate with their ex how to pick the kids up from that. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to have some more empathy around that. But yeah.
Yeah. And it's crazy too. Like, I just heard that If Books Could Kill podcast where they were discussing what's the matter with Kansas. And in the discussion, they said that actually what they found through studies is that people vote actually more on what the politician is pushing than like what they want. Like they'll find political figures that they like and then just kind of vote with them. Hence why in San Francisco, they had hundreds of thousands of dollars spent to take over the Democratic clubs and stuff like that because they want those endorsements. And you can see that over and over again. They basically want to push that idea. And it's kind of sad too when you have people like Sexy Red, you know, who's I want to say terrible flow. I don't know why. I think she's just like a shocking rapper. Has no flow. But like literally, it's like, you know, life was better under Trump. And I want to be, who is she talking to? Who believes that?
Well, honestly, if you actually look at it, when it came time to endorse, she actually did endorse Harris. I think she got paid by Trump's team. Because she eventually did, like right before the election, she switched sides and said like she's going to vote for Kamala. So I mean, and I think a lot of that was happening anyway. I mean, I think a lot of people were getting paid to do just that. You know, I mean, so the check clears. Then you go back to what you were doing previously, you know? I mean,
I think some of that is also like people are like, especially in rap, well, I would say in entertainment, one way to sound smart, they think, is to go against the grain.
Right.
So one way to sound like everybody's going left. I'm going to go right. Literally, that's what they're doing. I always say the reason why black celebrities become Republicans is because you get invited to way better parties if you're a black Republican at first than you do if you're just another black Democrat.
Right.
You know, like, you know, Stacey Dash was suddenly on the invited to every high-end Republican parties in Hollywood or around the country when she was a black Republican. Than if she had just been another black Democrat. So I think that there's some of this is also about the perception of like, oh, I really know what I'm talking about because all you guys are on the, you know, you've heard it, on the plantation of the Democrats, but I blah blah blah. I've listened to all the episodes of Joe Rogan, so I really know what's going on.
He doesn't even know what's going on, though. So,
no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
But I was gonna even note too, like Killer Mike. You know, somebody you would think would be like way more left and stuff. He's going like, you know, Cop City's happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now let's talk about black banks. You know, black-owned banks, and it's like, you know, embracing the system capitalism, and it's like.
Well, you can't really, like, the way I feel about Mike. I mean, and maybe you can thicken this for me, but the way like you got it, like there's a certain kind of engagement you got to have that Mike just does not possess, and there's nothing wrong. No, there's nothing wrong with what he does though. But I mean, like I love Run the Jewels. You know what I mean?
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, I love him like all day, every day. But even when you hear him talking about the politics in the songs, you're like, that's a little off, Mike. I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it like that, Mike.
No, I think that, same. I love Run the Jewels. I'm not voting for Run the Jewels to run the government.
No,
but like, I think there's also this thing, and that happens when you get to a certain size of wealth or whatever. Mike has businesses opened around Atlanta, like public, like the barbershop, and he just opened a seafood restaurant. A business owner needs to have friendly relationships with the cops.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. Insight.
Yep. I just think, and so I kind of would feel better if people were like, let me be honest. I used to be fuck the police, but now I'm like, call the police because I've invested in this property, which I think I understand it. So you can't be, I remember this is another one. LeBron James, when he was like supported Trayvon Martin, he wore the I Can't Breathe shirt for Eric Garner. And people were like, what about Tamir Rice in Cleveland? And LeBron James said, I don't know enough about that one. I need to get back to you on that one. And he never got back to us. And what was clear to me was like, that dude lives in the Cleveland area.
Yeah.
He has a house but anyway, he can't be, I can be anti the police, but not anti these police. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just so clear that it was like that I need these police are actually outside my house for free. guarding my house when I'm out of town. You know, they're taking care of my property when I'm out of town. I can't be not fuck these police, the other police.
All the other police, except my police.
My police.
Well, and remember too, I mean, it goes all the way back to like, I think it's just being a business owner too. You know, think about James Brown when he tried to start his franchise restaurants. I mean, he was supporting Nixon, you know, and that's a guy that came from like, you know, the worst parts of the South, the worst poverty. But suddenly when you got, you know, taxes to pay and business license and stuff like that, you start changing.
Suddenly you're like, oh, Republican, you say? I never thought of it. I mean, it's the same thing that happened. I saw a TikTok or Instagram reel, whatever it was, made by a comedian, clearly an Latinx comedian, and it was about the fact that like when the joke was like when immigrants make $50,000 a year, they become Republican. Like that was the joke, basically. Like, you know, like as soon as you make a real wage, which is funny, that you become like, oh, well, maybe we do need to, like, you know. And I think so. That thing I think happens quite often where with people, once you hit a certain financial status, suddenly your politics can be affected by who you're in the rooms with. So think about a celebrity. Suddenly you're in the rooms with more powerful people than you used to be. Suddenly you're friends with you're sort of not even friends with, but just friendly with a different type of person than you used to be, and which softens maybe your politics. And then also, I kind of need that. I kind of need that person to be on my side. So maybe Elon Musk has a point on a few things. You know what I mean?
You know, that is an interesting observation as well, because I think that a lot of things that people don't seem to understand these days is like how much transactional relationships have gotten a currency that they didn't have before. And
Keith Lee.
Well, I'm thinking about even more. Now, I'm talking about people like Trump, like Musk, like Vivek. I mean, these guys and Vance, right? These guys do not have a moral compass. They don't even really have a political platform, right? The whole thing is just transactionalism. It's just getting into the rooms. Yeah. That's it. You just want to get into the room, and so basically, these guys don't have politics. You know, they don't care about crime, clearly, because we got a felon president. They don't care about drugs, clearly, because he's got this drug addict standing right next to him. Yeah. They don't care about that shit. So it's got to be transactional, getting inside of the rooms, getting access, which has become way more important than it was, like, say, even 10 years ago. You know?
Yeah. And there's no such thing as hypocrisy anymore. So, like, like somebody... You know, people like to get on my Instagram comments and just wild out. And somebody was like talking about Kamala Harris or the Democrats being close to Jeffrey Epstein. How you go when the Democrats hang out with Jeffrey Epstein? I was like, what do you do? Like Trump was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and they were like, like they didn't. Somehow you got Kamala Harris, who was never on Epstein Island. Suddenly she's a part of Epstein, but Trump, who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, that doesn't count. So there's no such thing as like you can't call somebody out for hypocrisy anymore because they don't even feel it anymore. They didn't take the vaccine to COVID, but they took the vaccine to hypocrisy.
Oh, exactly. And also the other one is honor. Like who knew how much of the political system, our American political system, was based on honor and honor alone? I mean, who knew?
Based on a handshake agreement they thought it was a gentleman's agreement, but if there's no gentleman, the agreement doesn't stand.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like everybody's like, that's not a law. Like,
yeah, exactly. Wait a minute, you don't have to show your taxes if you run for president. That was just. Let's be cool. Let's be cool. Yeah. Wait a minute. You don't have to submit to you don't have to get examined by a doctor. You can just have a doctor write something up who's never met you before, and you can say you were examined by a doctor. Oh, okay. Wait, there's no psychological test to be president. It's just if you run, you can run. You got enough money. Yeah, like all of this has to change if we want to continue to have the version of the country that we thought we had. Not that we had, but we thought we had.
Yeah.
And also, that's also another keen observation is the fact that we are waking up from the dream just as much as the MAGAs are, right? Like this whole idea that what we thought this country was, it actually never was. You know, and so like that is this thing about having to come to terms and accept the fact that half the country is illiterate racist. We had no fucking idea.
And also like, wait, so you can't. A felon can't vote for president, but a felon can be the president.
Yeah.
There was nobody thought nobody thought to dot that I and cross that T. And I think that's what you're seeing a lot. Like you're saying, what you just said about if the MAGAs are waking up too, is what we're seeing through this whole situation with the healthcare executive.
Yeah.
Like it's like, you don't know if you saw that thing with Ben Shapiro, where he was indicting the left for celebrating the death of the healthcare executive and how we needed to be nice and blah blah blah. And then his comments were all of his right wing fans being like, no, we're in on this too. Like,
Yeah.
We also guess what? Everybody gets screwed over by the insurance industry, not just left wing people.
And, and that's a beautiful thing in its own right too, because I think a lot of these things are going to start happening like that. I mean, like these guys are just going to keep screwing us over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the more they screw us over, the more people are going to have to wake up to the fact that these guys are screwing us over.
But it's exciting to think of the idea, if you're a right-wing person, of Trump dismantling the Department of Justice and dismantling the government, and then one day you're going to wake up and be like, wait, where's my Social Security check? Well, you got what you wanted. He dismantled the government, and there's nobody there to hit send. There's nobody there to make sure you get your check. They've dismantled the government. There's nobody there to make sure you get your check. There's nobody there to make sure you get your veterans benefits.
All that money you contributed, it's now the stock market. So why don't you go play the stocks? Why don't you go get Robinhood on your app? And that'll get you. That's your retirement right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's if you find a fucking job, that is.
Exactly. I know. I mean, seriously, look at Argentina. That's all I want to say, because they are seeing what's happening in Argentina and think that's fine. And you're looking at what, 50% unemployment. I mean, it is bad. It's bad, and they want to do those same things, But it's so hard too, because I think a big thing we need to talk about is the media and media influence, especially on what people are thinking and like how, like I was just saying, I was watching the Black Twitter series and Elon Musk has taken over Twitter, and now you can see those impacts. I mean, for one, anyone on the left who says anything is bum rushed. I mean, everyone is just going to attack them. But also, too, that did used to be a great source for information that he is choked. And as being, from CNN on a CNN show, were you seeing this shift happening? Especially, I mean, CNN, when it comes to the Gaza genocide, I mean, has its hands all over it.
I mean, I'll say, like, it was so. People don't realize this, but I haven't been at CNN since like 2022.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they cleared me out at the same time they cleared out all of their all their travel shows, which was the thing that most people cared about CNN. Was like Bourdain and Stanley Tucci and me, and they cleared out all those shows to make room for the news, which is like that those shows came in because there wasn't much news going on Sunday nights at 9 and 10 o'clock, but whatever. I will say that I don't think it's an accident that they've let go of a lot of like Don Lemon's gone. Like a lot of their anchors are leaving because they don't like the current ownership doesn't like stars. They don't like the stars. They want people who will just who will just read the news as it is in the prompter. They don't want people with opinions. I feel pretty. I'm sorry.
Bless you.
So, and this has been documented that there was an activist stockholder when the company was bought named John Malone, who wanted CNN to be Fox News Light, as if that's a thing. Because really, Fox News is already Fox News. That's as light as it gets. So, and that's why they've lost people. They cleared us out and everything. But so I definitely saw this coming. I'm not surprised but the one thing CNN had when I was there is no matter what people around me were doing, I was allowed to do what I was doing.
Right.
I was allowed to say what I was going to say. They knew that I was going to come on there and say some crazy lefty. Sorry. They knew that I was going to come over there and say some crazy lefty thing, and that I was going to, I was allowed to do that. I don't know that there's that space for anybody at that network now that's not just sort of reporting it as the news. That is like there's a guy, Donny O'Sullivan, who does great work there as a journalist and definitely speaks to all these issues, but he's very siloed in a small area. And if I was there, I'd be like, this guy needs more time. But they they like to present this illusion that this is the news, and as their ratings are showing, and there's a lot of great people who work there. My boss is still there. it's not currently working out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you think the left is going to be able to set up their own news environment?
This is the thing I think is funny. There are such good, and maybe you two know this too. There's a lot of great sort of political content on these social media sites that is done by people who have no interest in working for a corporation and wouldn't even know how to work for a corporation if you gave them the opportunity. Like and so I think that it's really up to the left to go find those people and then elevate those and then we can all elevate those people, because I'm old enough to remember when Joe Rogan was doing that show out of his apartment or out of his house. And it was even before podcasting. And the thing that I will give Joe Rogan credit for is he started early, he was consistent, and at its core, it was just comedians talking shit.
Right.
Which is the thing that at the time we didn't have a million podcasts of comedians talking shit. And then he also had the benefit of putting a heavy dollop of the UFC on top of it, and that happened to blow up into this. So he definitely did the hard work, and he definitely saw that the UFC was going to be a thing. But then somehow on top of it, he's like, and now now I know everything about politics, and that's where it all fell apart.
Right.
So I think that if the left, like, actually, if the left actually sort of understood that, like, those people, you can't create that thing from the outside. You gotta go find that person, and those people are out there.
Yep.
And you got to find that person. You got to rally around that person. You got to fund that person. You can't expect it to be for free. And those people are, for the most part, going to be outside of mainstream media. And the thing that sucks is that if Trump comes in and pulls the plug on TikTok, then a lot of those people lose a platform. If all the major social media platforms just start to trend more right wing, then all that content gets throttled. And so I think that at some point, somebody has to decide, how do we make sure that those people don't get sort of like blown away into the ether? How do we make sure that those voices that are already there, because they're already there, actually get out to the people who they need to get out to?
Right. Make an alternative distribution networks is what's needed, I guess, because you can't do it on TV. Like you can't do that on television. You definitely can't do it on Twitter,
And also the people who you want to get, like, especially the engine of any movement is going to be the young people, and the young people ain't watching TV. I mean? Like they're not tuning in at 8:00 on Thursdays. They want it. If you got something to say, just tell me you want to say it, and I'll tune in when it's happening. Like, something is happening. There's a guy I'm on Substack, and Ken Clipstein, that dude is like, he's like leading the news on this United Healthcare CEO and Luigi Mangione. He is like breaking the news himself. And then what happens is the news, there reports on it and goes, this came from Ken Clipstein. Like, it's very, sort of like at the end of the article, we got this from Ken Clipstein. And I'm seeing this dude like out there just basically, he could be a guy, like, I don't know everything about him, but the work he's doing is he's clearly got inside sources. He's clearly got people out there who trust him, who are leaking material to him and know to leak to him. And he's leading the way. And then the mainstream news reports on it like, there's a story about this thing. Like he got the guy's manifesto. He put out the guy's manifesto. He got the clip from the healthcare CEO in the days after Brian Thompson had died. Who was basically saying, hey, we have to deny people. That's how we do it. And he got
unnecessary care.
Unnecessary care. Yeah. So I think that, like, let's not act like that Ken can, that if he's doing that and he's on Substack so he can be supported, then go support him.
Right.
Because and then maybe that thing builds up around him, or Zateo with Mehdi Hassan. Like, that's another one who, like, he left the mainstream media and said, I'm going to go start over here, and they're doing a lot of good work at Zateo. So I think that we have to understand that, like, I think sometimes the left, we want a new Joe Rogan, and they act like it's a reality show. Who should we turn into the new Joe Rogan? In reality, it's like, no. Go support the people who are out there, and whoever's going to lead the next thing, it's going to happen if enough people support them.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's true, especially too, I think the legacy media is sinking because they're choosing a business model of supporting the right. And a big thing too that Ken has been reporting on is how the New York Times is telling its people, don't show pictures of Luigi because it seems to be getting a lot of fans because the dude's got abs. Let's just admit it. He's got abs. He's a good looking dude. He's inspiring people.
If it was a movie, you would say that guy's too good looking to play Luigi.
Yeah,
he's too good looking. Let's get a guy who's slightly less good looking to play Luigi. This looks fake. Is what Also, the name Luigi Mangione is too. It's too on the nose.
It's too on the nose.
Let's pull it back a little bit. I get what you're trying to do here, but it's past satire. It's into parody. It's
yeah, exactly. But it's so clear the legacy media is seeing the writings on the wall, and they're trying to stick with the right because it seems like, well, these are the rich.
That's where the money is.
They're advertisers and stuff. But then we've seen over and over again that like the left is desperate for these media accounts, and like anytime there is something somewhat left on like the Chronicle, which is totally embracing the right wing crime wave, theft, everything else, but anytime there's anything just a little bit left, or like 48 Hills, SF Gate, like these publications, when they do that stuff, I see it get around all the time, but they're shooting themselves in the foot by not trying to be biased, especially now too. They're ruining that idea of what the news is supposed to be. I mean, honestly, objectivity, the idea of objectivity wasn't it was a business decision. It wasn't just a value. It was like, no, people will support us if we say this is just the facts. We're not add anything to it. Like, we're just reporting it, Yeah.
Yeah, but I think sometimes I hear people say, like, I want to go back to the time of, like, remember the news, when we were all growing up, when there was three channels. They did the news for an hour a day. And like, I want to go back to that time when the news was nonpartisan, and does when three old white men were telling us the news every night. It was like that's the thing we want to go back to. I think I think the idea of the idea of not being biased in journalism is really a falsehood. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think the minute you start to tell the story, you're cutting out some details. And even the idea of like, I'm unbiased is a way of saying there's no winners or losers in this story. This is just a bunch of facts. And it's like, no, there are winners and losers. And you should want to pull for the little guy, because we shouldn't shit a little guy. And you should be critical of the big guy who's in it for the profit motive. You should be, and right now you're seeing the media is having to tell this United Healthcare story in a way that factors that in, because the public won't let them tell it as just a tragic event. It is a tragic event that guy was murdered, but it's not just that.
Right. I mean, it's also interesting because it's a strictly American phenomenon. Like over at the UK, that the Guardian UK is actually like a labor movement publication. The Sun, however, is Tory and right wing. So but only in America do we think that we can be unbiased in our retelling of things, right? Like every other country. Italy is the same way. France is the same way. There's right-leaning papers and left-leaning papers, right-leaning stations, left-leaning stations. We're the only people who bullshit ourselves over these last few years.
Yeah.
And thinking that we can report without.
And this is the paper. It's just the news. The news. This is not any. No, there's no specific attitude. It's just the news. Because if you think about like the only way that like these giant legacy newspapers were able to claim that, it's because they were freezing out any voices that weren't white.
That's right.
They were freezing out any voices that didn't support the thing they wanted to, and so you could claim this is the news because we're not letting anybody who has a different opinion.
Right, and also, I mean, like that. Also, I've been saying this. I said this to Kevin. Like I've said this to him on this pod so many times. If people would have just listened to Black people, Donald Trump would not be president.
Yeah.
Like, if you just would have listened to Black people, Donald Trump would not be president. If you had listened to the Black pundits who were saying this whole thing about Joe's dementia or whatever the fuck. I mean, we're looking at this other guy and he's giving fellatio to a microphone, right? I think that it would have been okay, but black pundits were like, no, it's because he's standing next to Kamau to Harris. He's appointing a bunch of black judges, and everybody knows this, right? Black people are like, don't let that man step down, because if you let him step down, the only thing that's going to be left is the black woman, and America is not going to vote for that black woman. What we need that white man up in front. We need that white man up in front, and the people who wouldn't, and the white people. I'm now using the word white protectionists. The white protectionists on the left would have voted for Joe. Yeah. So that's just a phenomenon, like in the news, just in general. What would the world look like if we actually listened to black people?
Or what would the world look like if Joe Biden had actually listened to himself and said, "I'm a bridge president. I'm not running next time."
Yes.
I'm gonna let if only Joe Biden had listened to himself, and there would have been an actual primary where we could have figured out who's the person on the left in the Democratic Party that literally is testing the highest in the Q ratings, because that's what it's about.
That's what it's about ultimately.
No, I'm not talking about their policies. Sometimes the policies help, but like, who's the person who has the highest Q rating that we can run against Donald Trump? You know,
because Trump doesn't have any policies. There's no policies on the Republican side. You guys got no policies. What you're gonna do is go, okay, here we're gonna do. We're gonna come over there. We're gonna put Bibles in your schools. We're gonna rob you. And we're going to rape your children, and then we're going to force them to have our babies. And half the country was like, yes, that's what I wanted. I didn't even know.
It's like you hear people all the time. When he said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, people are like, yay, he sure could.
Or even worse, she could grab my pussy. Like,
oh my God.
So many women wearing that T-shirt. Why?
Because America is dumb.
America's.
They've been seeking the education system for a while now. I mean, you see it in San Francisco. Look, William Opendorf, who was one of the biggest funders of those San Francisco board recalls, that took down Allison Collins and everyone else. He is a big fan of Milton Friedman, and actually talked with Milton Friedman about how schools shouldn't be equal. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, Milton Friedman was very open about how, like, it's not the government's responsibility to provide everyone good schools.
Right.
There you go.
It's interesting. I've been working on a project about public schools, and I found out through this project that a lot of the basis for public schools in America, a lot of it comes from Massachusetts. Like, Horace Mann, every school's named after Horace Mann, but nobody knows who he is. It was a white guy named Horace Mann, who actually, if you look at what he said schools should be, it's things that schools still should be in art. And it's interesting to think that that it's anti-Milton Friedman. Like, the guy who basically set up public schools was like, it should be a diverse education. He was an abolitionist, a white abolitionist. He should be open to everybody. It should be all equally funded. Like, all these things, like 6 different things he said school should be. And you look at it and go, the guy who started public schooling in this country, a white guy, actually had the right idea. And we've been pushing back against that ever since he had that idea.
Wow. Because it was effective. Right. Because it educated people. And guess what? The bad forces in this country depend on the stupid.
It's
depend on the uninformed.
The educated are not easy to manage. So
there's been a lot of those revelations about how people were straight up saying, like, we can't keep college cheap. Because these people are coming out and they're becoming revolutionaries, and they're starting to see the cracks of the system.
Reagan
the system.
Reagan did that. Reagan did
Reagan did a lot. He did a lot.
Reagan. You know what? If anybody ever asks me why is it like Reagan? It doesn't really matter. Why do we Reagan? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just say why, and I'll just say Reagan.
He was basically like the first Trump, the first celebrity president. He was the face of the party without having any policies. He was just the front man of the band, but didn't write any of the songs. And he was responsible for a lot of things that have completely shifted this country away from what this country actually claims that it is.
Yes.
Literally the first guy to use "Make America Great Again."
And also the guy who's responsible for all the homelessness.
When
we talk about homeless populations, we're talking about Reagan. Yeah. So tell me about this project. Are you working with a network or anything like that too? Like,
what'd you say?
Tell me the project. Are you working with the network, or is it going to be a
it's
series?
Right now it's in development. It would hopefully be a limited series about like the history of education in this country. And like I said, a lot of it is through the lens of like sort of like a lot of times you see things about the history of education, and they're just about like one part of the timeline. And I really like, what if we went all the way back and said, how did we get here? Let's look where we started. So I think that's the idea that we're sort of looking for. But right now the big struggle is that, and I was just talking about this earlier, is that as somebody I'm on a lot of Zoom calls because I'm in show business. That's how you know you're in show business, if you're on a lot of Zoom calls. And somebody said that currently the documentary space in showbiz wants 3 C's: celebrity, crime, and cult. Like wow. That's so that if you're selling something to a streamer, that's what they want to hear. Is they want to hear it's about Tom Cruise. And you didn't know this, but he committed a crime, and we're going to expose Scientology. That's what that would be the
wow.
thing. That would be the thing that would sell in the room. They don't want. There's not really a lot of appetite for. I mean, as far as like, people make these docs all the time. There's not a lot of appetite for like, this is an intimate documentary about a person you don't know who's living a life that hasn't been seen. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of appetite for the kind of things that we associate with documentary. They still get made at places like PBS, but there's not a lot of like, you're talking about people who, I mean, a lot of these docs, I don't think you realize, the people who make them basically just were like making them on credit cards or grants and never really got paid to make them. Yeah. And so you see them on a platform and you sort of think, oh, this person is successful. And they're like, I'm still trying to figure out how to pay my rent. Basically, yes. Even though this thing is on TV. So that's another thing that I feel like, the left has to understand that, like, if you don't want everything to be celebrity, crime, and cult, then you need to figure out how to invest in the people who don't do that, and also make it so that as a livable thing. Like, I think about Canada all the time, of course, because we all do. But like, you talked about France. There are countries that think the arts are important.
Yeah.
That think it's important to have artists and professional artists who can just make art. We are not that country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And there used to be a time for it. Like, I'm thinking about the WPA back in the 40s and 50s. Like, there was a time we did value the arts, and we value culture. Like, the thing is that right now we don't even really value culture anymore. I mean, like, and without culture, how do you interpret events? How do you interpret, but then again, people don't even know what the fuck history is anymore. So I guess it's all right, because people don't know history.
So, no, that's the plan.
Yeah.
I saw, like, I mean, you talk about people don't value culture. The CEO of Spotify, it was named Daniel Ek. He said he basically said in some meeting or something. I'm just making sure I'm saying this right. He said the cost of creating content, I'm reading now off of Fortune, the cost of creating content is close to zero. So what he's saying is that it costs almost nothing to create content, which is a lie. Even if you just talk about the hours you put into it yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is costing you. That is a cost.
Yeah,
that you should be paid for if somebody else wants it. But what he's basically saying is, like, the reason why we don't have to pay artists a lot on Spotify is because the cost to create content is zero. And it's just a lie. Even if you talk about the skills you had to learn to create the content.
Absolutely. Yeah, but labor hours, though. You're going to try to say that, like, you're going to say that the content is just creates itself, or we're doing it. We're just playing. Like,
well, it's almost like, because you're not being paid for it, you shouldn't be paid for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if I sit down and write a song and then want to post that song because nobody paid me to write that song, it was free.
Oh, that's greedy.
As opposed to like, no, I wrote the song, so now I can get paid for it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's greedy bastard thinking. We got too many greedy bastards in this country.
And now I think it's just very clear that greedy bastards has no political affiliation.
No, none whatsoever. And that's the other, when we keep talking about the left needs to invest. Well, the question is where's the money coming from the left to invest? Because we know that one of the primary functions of the right is to be a bunch of greedy bastards. Like, they're the ones who are hoarding the money. Where is this money supposed to come from, do you think? where we can do this.
But I don't. That's what I think. I think, like I think once you become rich, as we were talking about earlier, I think your political affiliation can start to sort of get blurry or shift or disappear. I posted this on Instagram. Mark Zuckerberg flew down to Mar-a-Lago in the wake of the election to make sure him and Trump were cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I remember that was actually a big quote too from Jenna Jameson, the porn star, who was like, "Yeah, I'm a Democrat until I started making money."
Yes, no, that's Charles. I think Charles Barkley said that too. I don't know if they were together at the time, but Charles Barkley, he said to his grandmother, "I can't be a Democrat. I'm rich." But I think he's bounced back from that because of the Trump era. But yeah, I think that these people at one point we saw Zuckerberg as being a voice for the left. That's been a long time.
Yeah.
But there was a time where he was like, because we thought people from Silicon Valley, because it was sort of a sort of debate, were leftists, which we now know is not true. But I mean, remember when Elon Musk we thought he was like Tony Stark in real life, and he was going to create a hyperloop that was going to help us get from the Inner Sunset to the airport or whatever.
Yeah. And it was just because he hated public transit.
That was because he didn't want to be around the poors. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to. That's what that was.
But I think that, we have to understand it. So what I'm saying is there are a bunch of, I know this is true in the Bay Area, there's a bunch of rich people who actually aren't political and just sort of think everything's going to be fine. We need to tell them, no. You need to choose a side.
Right.
And I think it's hard for these people to choose a side because when they go to the fancy parties, they are standing next to Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Right. And we all want to be friends, and that's why I'm keeping my no new friends motto. I can't.
Well, and that's the toughest part too, because there is the left could be the funders of, the tech could be funders of the left, but there is this concerted effort to bring new techies in, especially in San Francisco. You have the clubs like the Battery and everything else, and all these clubs that are really trying to bring these new techies in. They're moving to the city. They don't have friends. They don't know people. That's what I was telling you about the network stake, which truly, check it out. It's crazy.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but that's kind of a part of it. It's like bring them in and be like, see. Look what these lefty idiots are doing. All these poor people you're looking at. That's all the left's fault.
Well, I think it's important, the network state and how it ties into this, because the thing is, the network state itself actually has a fascist origin, a fascist white supremacist origin. So, when you started seeing, I don't know if you've noticed this, but Elon Musk loves sharing Nazi memes. He loves sharing Nazi memes, but he's not alone in that. Gary Tan also has an anti-black sentiment, as does Peter Thiel, who has an anti-black sentiment.
Oh yeah,
Sachs has an anti-black sentiment. And it's actually just anti-black. It's not anti-Asian. It's not anti-Latino. It's strictly an anti-black ethos. David Sachs and Peter Thiel in 1992 or 93 wrote a book
or was it 96? I know
96.
what book you're talking about.
Yeah, the diversity myth. The diversity myth. And the diversity myth actually is race science. There's another guy named Yarvin. Yarvin is the guy that was Thiel's kind of mentor, as was he was J.D. Vance's kind of mentor. And he said he has no problem standing next to white nationalist literature. He's not allergic to white nationalist literature. He actually said that in an interview. So these guys are actually like Nazis. Like legit Nazis.
Yeah. White
straight up.
Yeah, straight up Nazis. Yeah.
So that's something fun to look forward to.
Yeah,
Well, but it also that actually brings me up to a question that's been sitting with me for a bit. So we're coming up to almost 10 years of the Elmwood Cafe.
Yeah,
that's funny. My 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Yeah, I should set that. Well, the funny thing is, it's easy to remember when it happened for me. I didn't know it was 10 years because it was on my birthday, so it's easier for me to like remember that date every birthday. I'm like, this is when the Elmwood Cafe happened. So yeah.
They
Yeah.
did that to you on your birthday?
Yeah.
That's what I never really made a big deal out of that because again, it was like the Luigi Mangione thing. That feels like too much. Also, it was my birthday.
It was your birthday.
It was my birthday. I mean, that was just the last piece of irony on top of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was something that truly blew up because of social media, and I would
Mhm.
and a legacy media that was at least empathetic to what you went through.
That's a good observation. Can you tell us about what the difference is? Like we were Facebook friends when that happened, and so I got a chance. I got a chance to see like all the support you were getting, and like
in real time. Yeah,
in real time. But like in hindsight, did the legacy media treat you better or worse? Did the alternative media even address you? I mean, like in hindsight, how do you think that whole experience?
It's funny. I feel like I feel like this. The people, like people in the streets, people like on maybe social media, like people generally, I felt like the people had my back. I feel like the media did the thing we talked about earlier. On the one side, this cafe kicked him out. On the other side, what was he doing? Like, there wasn't really like, they sort of did the thing that they do, which is why I was really like not engaging with the media. One of the craziest things that happened was like, we were living in Berkeley. My address was not public. I never tried to be perfect. And we got like a business card on our front porch of our house from a legacy media outfit going, "We'd love to talk to you." And I'm like, this is creepy. Like, like obviously they know how to find stuff, but like, it just felt like, why would you think you putting a card on my doorstep would make me feel excited? Because it's like, we know where you live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
wow.
And so I felt like there was and then also I saw some stuff. The Young Turks actually, I think, did this. There was a little bit of like when the story got out, like sort of making fun of the story because it's like the water skiing squirrel. So Berkeley's racist. Isn't this hilarious? Not like this is the thing we need to talk about and da 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 da. It was more like Berkeley's, more making fun of Berkeley than it was anything else. And also making fun of the black guy who talks about racism, who's whining about being kicked out of a coffee shop. So to me, but I also felt like it was just so clear to me that like, if this is happening to me, that it's happening to more than just me. And I've certainly heard that story many times about the Elmwood Cafe. Like, oh yeah, they did that. They did this, they did this. So I felt like I sort of have to sit here and take the slings and arrows. And I felt so great about the fact that like, so then a couple years later, those black guys got arrested at the Starbucks who were waiting for a friend of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really like, and people were like, I can't imagine getting black people being kicked out of a coffee shop. And I went, and that's when my platform was a lot bigger because I had been on CNN. When the Elmwood Cafe story first broke, my CNN show hadn't started.
Right.
By the time those guys got kicked out of the coffee shop, my platform was bigger. And I went, oh, you want to hear about a black guy? And I started talking about it again. And that's when the Elmwood Cafe shut down and were sold to the manager, see my air quotes, and changed their name to whatever it is now. But repeatedly, that hasn't happened in years, but like the new owners of the Elmwood Cafe, the new owners of what was formerly the Elmwood Cafe, have reached out at a point like, hey, Kamau, you want to come by and have a snad dinner and have some coffee? And I was like, fuck no. I just hope your coffee shop is less racist. I don't need to eat there to prove, I don't want to be that black guy. Like now that they're giving me free food, this cafe is cool with me. I'm not that guy.
So you're not Ice Cube.
No, I'm not whoever. I am not the guy I just was very clear, like, that's a bad look on my best day. And so I think that like I've like my joke at the time was like, if I have walking past that coffee shop and in that coffee shop is my mom and at the time like Nikki Giovanni and Bell Hooks and the Ghost of Harry Tubman, I'm gonna wave and keep walking because I don't need to be in that coffee shop. I don't need to. I'm glad that they feel comfortable in there, but I'm gonna keep walking. So.
But I think it's interesting. You also said the Young Turks because we now see that their true colors has come out too.
So
it's not much of a surprise as it was 10 years ago.
No. For me, that was like I was thinking about this earlier. I'm pretty good at smelling a grift, even at the pre-grift stage.
Yeah.
That's like I just realized that's a superpower I have. There's people that I sort of like just don't mess with. And at the time, people are like, why wouldn't you? And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't feel it. And the Young Turks were that for me. Like, I'm not saying they haven't done good work and they haven't hired people, but there was always something a little bit like, I don't know about all this. And now I'm seeing why I didn't know about all this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so, and that's the other thing, the turncoats is just become such an issue. Oh, have you ever been approached by a MAGA to do something? Has anybody ever tried to flip you?
So this is during the rise of when the alt-right was still what we were calling it, the alt-right. I got I remember I got an email, and the email was from my agent, and it was like political. I think it was some political thing. I don't know. I don't want to say it was Politicon, but some political thing was like wanted to know if I wanted to do a tour where I would travel around with right-wing people and debate them on stage on this tour. And the names were like, this will tell you what time of era it was. Milo Yiannopoulos, Roger Stone, and I'm gonna say Ann Coulter. I think it was those. Like, it was like they were like the people they were trying to also get on the tour. And at the time, the person I was working with in my office, she was at her computer, and I was like, $2 million. And she was like, what? And she's like, why did you just yell $2 million? I was like, I'm just trying to say the amount out loud that it needs to be for me to sell my soul. Looking back, that was underbidding myself.
Yeah, totally.
I was like,
man.
now I realized, because later we were like, no, I guess I need $10 million. She's like, no, I need my cut. Okay, I need $20 million. I realized I needed more because I need to be able to disappear completely.
Yeah,
the tour is over.
You need to buy an island after that.
Exactly. No. I have to get plastic surgery. I got to move to another land.
I gotta change my name. I gotta do all sorts of things. And so,
oh my God.
Suffice it to say, it was not even. There wasn't even a million. I think there was probably 4 zeros. There weren't even like 5 zeros. So I think I was like, So yeah, that was the time I got, because this is the time when there was like debate me culture. Like, you'd see these things, and the Young Turks did a lot of this too, where you'd see a left-wing person and a right-wing person show up at the same place and debate each other, and then on YouTube you'd see the same clip, but it would be headlined on the left-wing person's platform, watch me destroy this right-wing person. And it'd be the same clip on the right-wing person's platform, watch me destroy this left-wing person. I'm like, that's when you're like, I think there's, again, it's the grift. And especially with people, once you get that big investment of money, suddenly, and this is what I think we saw happen at the Young Turks, suddenly your politics gets a little bit blurry, a little bit, that blue starts to turn purpley.
Yes, yeah. Oh, suddenly, cops are actually our friends. They're pretty good. Like, well,
suddenly,
identity politics
are being too trans all the time. Why are these trans?
Like trans and identity politics. And can we discuss these or not?
Yeah. Well, because it almost seems like there's this whole kind of. It's like UFC, political UFC, while you have on politics, you have the horse race for campaigns and stuff, but you also have this whole, and that was even back with, what was Crossfire? That was like, when we were first seeing that stuff until Jon Stewart basically cut it off, shut it down. But it seems like that's always industry.
Jon Stewart is great. He's done a lot of incredible work, but even he recently was like defending Joe Rogan, saying Joe Rogan talks to everybody. And I'm like, he doesn't talk to everybody. Like, no. I get that you're a comedian and he's a comedian and you guys probably know each other and you go back a long way. And also get Jon Stewart. You're probably not watching Joe Rogan that much and you just sort of know he's out there. But Joe Rogan does not talk to everybody. It's he talks to tall white men, short white men, skinny white men, muscular white men, fat white. He does not talk to everybody.
And also too, he doesn't fact check. So people can just come on and just drop whatever shit, like you just saw with Andreessen talking about what the CFPB does, or at least like spreading lies about how it defames people. But I remember
blocked me on Twitter, and I don't even know why he blocked me on Twitter.
I think he just knew
in advance. I was like, I don't even mention your name.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of Gary Tan was famous for doing that.
Yeah,
I have never interacted with this guy, and I am blocked.
I'm blocked. I'm blocked by Gary Tan. I'm blocked by Sam Singer. I'm blocked by so many people, and I've never even interacted with you guys.
Yeah.
It's just like I say, "Oh, I'm blocked." Okay.
Yeah, I love that I was bothering you just by breathing.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Not paying attention to you, you block me because I'm not paying attention to you. So now you'll never know if I'm paying attention to you or not.
You know who else blocked me? Which Colin Cowherd, the sports guy.
Yeah.
He blocked me, and I'm like, I don't like you, but I've never said your name. Like it was almost like you just go, I just think I should block it.
Yeah. Well, he's on Fox Sports.
No, he's definitely the guy. I mean, he's definitely one of those white sportscasters, and it's like, man, when you talk about black athletes, you get a little extra sneer.
Oh, yes.
Leaning into it. Yeah.
His coverage of Trey Lance is pretty infamous, especially because it came out too that Trey Lance had dated his daughter and dumped at her.
Didn't know that.
It's a little bit of revenge media there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's one thing they don't like.
Oh, totally. Well, this is awesome, man. We should probably wrap it up. We've taken a lot of your time, but it was so wonderful. But yeah, so you got the public school project going on. Tell us what you're doing now and where we should be checking in with you.
As I mentioned, I am on Substack. That's currently where, if you want to keep up, I'm writing there once a week ish. So that's where I would say it's called Who's With Me. So because that's all I need. That's the only question I need to know going into the next era of America. Who's with me? So it's on Substack, and I'm going on tour next year with the Who's With Me comedy tour, where I make my return to stand-up comedy. So there will be some dates in the Bay we're working on right now. But yeah, I'm going about 10 cities and hopefully adding some more, and back to where I started.
Are you gonna be bringing NATO with you?
Subscribe, bud. I'm subscribed.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will bring NATO with me if he's available. NATO has like 2 children and a full-time job as a saving San Francisco. So I think that when he's available, he will definitely come. It's great to have him on the road with me, because I feel like after NATO does his set, whatever politics I do is bonus, because he just sort of runs through everything, and then I can go up there and be like, everybody ever think about cookies and puppies?
Totally. Well, awesome. Well, that was an episode of Doomloop Dispatch. Follow us on all the socials, X, TikTok, Instagram. We're all over there. Please support our Patreon, because we need to pay for our StreamYard bills. So anything you can give us will help. And as we always say, keep fighting
the good fight.
Totally.